bunnies, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Royal Talens art creation sketchbook. The sketchbook seems to be yet another art supply trend within the online art community. To be honest, I've been seeing this sketchbook everywhere for a while, so I might just be kind of late to this trend, but honestly, I think that being late can help me review the sketchbook more honestly. So is this sketchbook just cute, or is it actually worth the hype? Since I want this review to actually be helpful to you, I came up with 6 categories that make a good sketchbook, and I'll be ranking them on a scale of 1 to 5, and I will have a final score out of 30. Because everyone's tastes in sketchbooks can be different, you can also rank each category yourself, because while my conclusion might be biased, the information I will provide should be able to help you decide if this is the right sketchbook for you. Please use the chapters below to skip around if you are only looking for certain information. Honestly, the pretty colors of these sketchbooks are the aspect that I think first draws a lot of people to them. It's hard to find another brand that makes sketchbooks in such a variety of colors. I really like to make my sketchbooks feel like my own and really personalize them because I feel like it sets the tone for the art that I make and helps me feel motivated and inspire me to create. Some people might not care what a sketchbook looks like, but if it works, looking cute is definitely a plus in my book. Not only the covers have color though, as the pages and the vast majority of these notebooks have an off-white sort of cream colored page. You can get Royal Talens sketchbooks in a white, but they are not as common and come in much fewer cover colors and sizes. The pages not being white can either be a big plus or a deal breaker depending on the artist, but personally, I'm pretty indifferent to it most of the time. It's hard to accurately show the color since my table is white, but I would say that it's a pretty natural cream color. This is the first sketchbook I've ever used that doesn't have bright white pages, but honestly, after a while, I didn't really notice it anymore, but here's a quick pros and cons list for you, so I hope that it helps. For the pros, I have that it can help transparent mediums seem more cohesive by giving them a common undertone. It can be a little bit easier on the eyes, gives your art a more natural feel. You can get some of the benefits of toned paper where you have a pretty good middle ground between a bright white and a toned paper. And it can be less daunting than a fresh bright white page. For the cons, I have that it can make photographing your work for social media a bit tricky just because of the color inaccuracy and the cameras might not adjust well to an off-white color. Color distortion can make colors muddier and warmer, which might not be the intention for a specific piece. And colors don't pop as much or look as vibrant. And finally, not as easy to clean up artworks digitally just because the bright white page is just a little bit easier to work with in that respect. I have stuck a few pages of cardstock in my sketchbook for various reasons, so if you have a specific piece that you feel needs to be on white paper, you can definitely glue in a page. If it's something you feel like you might not want to do very often, just more of on an occasion. I'd give the Talens art creation sketchbook a 5 out of 5 for cover variation and a 3 out of 5 for page color, since personally I'm a bit in favor of the cream color, but I know that not everyone will enjoy it, so for an average of 4 out of 5 for this category. I'll be using the Blix site when discussing the prices, availability, etc. So the sizes that the Talens art creation sketchbook comes in is 4.7 inch by 4.7 inch square, 3.5 inch by 5.5 inch, 5.8 inch by 8.3 inch, 5.1 inch by 8.3 inch, 8.3 inch by 11.7 inch. So with 5 unique sizes with landscape, square, and standard vertical sketchbook aspect ratios, there really is a sketchbook size for most artists. My sketchbook is the 5.1 inch by 8.3 inch, and I would say that it's a very standard sketchbook size that is just a little bit taller and a bit more slender. I used to use the Artist Loft sketchbooks before this because they also come in cute colors and were cheap, and the sizes they offer are very similar to the Royal Talens ones. My first sketchbook was really big, like the largest Talens art creation sketchbook, and I think that it would be plenty big for most artists. The 2 small sizes would be great for travel or for sketching ideas on the go, while the middle sizes are great for drawing at school or at the cafe, as they'll easily fit in a small bag or purse while still giving you the space to work if you really want to get into it at home. Even though the last size is really large, it's still slim enough to fit into a backpack or a tote bag, so it's still easy to transport it, sort of like a slim textbook. So you can bring it anywhere, even if you might need a bit of space to actually get some work done. At least compared to the Artist Loft sketchbooks I have been using, they stay quite slim and light, especially since they have a band to keep them closed, that I actually don't mind carrying them around, and they actually will slip into a bag, unlike this beast. For size and portability, I just have to give it a 5 out of 5 because there really is a sketchbook to strike the right balance for any artist. Personally, I'd recommend the size that I have to anyone that doesn't really have a preference because it's just the most flexible, whether you choose to take it places or leave it at home full time. The build quality and durability has to be the number one reason that I will never go back to using the random cheap store brand sketchbooks you can get just about anywhere. While it's nice to spend a couple dollars less to get a sketchbook that I don't feel like I can ruin, not having to worry about my sketchbook falling apart while I'm drawing or soon after it's completed and sitting on a shelf is just a nice peace of mind when I draw something I'm proud of. And it just makes looking back at old art and my progression more enjoyable. To be fair, I did glue a lot of stuff in my old sketchbooks and really tested their limits, but even watercolor would go through the pages, and the spines were so prone to breaking off that they make them without the spines now. It's nice to buy a sketchbook in a cute color and decorate it with stickers and not have the color fade and rub off. The covers of the Royal Talent sketchbooks have a slight gloss to them, so if you spill something on it, you can always wipe it off and they're gonna handle a bit of water and daily travel. My old sketchbooks traumatized me so much that I was afraid to leave the house with this one because I didn't want it to get stained by just setting it on a table or worrying about it getting roughed up in my bag, but this sketchbook was surprisingly durable. Mine did arrive with a dent, which isn't great, but I don't know how they did it in shipping because I haven't managed to do anything like it while taking it with me everywhere. It has a nice little bookmark built in, which I like to use when I skip or don't finish a page and I want to remember to come back to it. Since the pages buckle with the watercolors, I don't really need to use it to keep my current spot, but it would be nice for artists that only use dry media. If I could give it an infinity out of 5, I would, but to be fair, I'll just give it a 5. With 80 sheets of paper, I would say the sketchbook has enough pages to keep you busy for a while without overstaying its welcome. The amount of pages artists prefer to have really depends on the artist, but in my experience, I found this to be a real Goldilocks size. For reference, the only sketchbooks I've used are the Artist Loft sketchbooks, which have a whopping 110 sheets, and the Canson mixed media pads with a far more modest 60 sheets. I found that 110 sheets of horrible paper was quite the slog that required a clear goal and regular drawing to complete, which just wasn't for me, but neither was the pressure of 60 sheets of really nice paper without much time to gain my footing. The amount might not be for you, but I think that picking the middle road makes these generally appealing to most artists that don't have a strict preference for very long or very short sketchbooks, so I'll give it a 4 out of 5. But as I mentioned earlier, the amount of pages is sort of a moot point if the quality isn't up to snuff and it's miserable to draw on and get through. Personally, I don't think most artists are looking for archival quality that doesn't crinkle with any medium's quality paper in their sketchbooks, but being able to take an idea in your sketchbook farther without the paper dying is really important to the sketchbook experience to me. To be fair, if you were really looking for that quality of sketchbook, you probably already have your favorite It Costs an Arm, a Leg, and a Soul fancy sketchbook. The paper in the Talon's Art Creation sketchbook is a very smooth 90-pound, 140 GSM acid-free paper. Again, I'll compare to the other sketchbooks I've used with the Canson mixed media pad at 98-pound, 160 GSM, and the Artist Loft's 75-pound, 110 GSM. Despite how thin and light the overall footprint of the sketchbook is, it actually conveys a lot better with the Canson mixed media pad than I would have expected. While my last sketchbook ghosted at the slight suggestion of watercolors, the Talon sketchbook holds its own until alcohol markers are introduced, which is fine by me because I'm not wasting my precious Copic ink on my sketchbook. I have the freedom to layer and add more vibrancy to my sketchbook. Personally, I work with watercolor, colored pencil, crayons, and pens on my sketchbook, so I don't have the first-hand experience with the other mediums they claim this sketchbook can handle, but I've seen many artists that work with gouache and pastel speak highly of the sketchbook and its paper quality. I know some artists care about buckling, but as an artist that put puffy stickers, little gems, and interactive bits in my previous sketchbooks, I think it adds character, but for the people that may be concerned, I'll insert an image of my sketchbook with and without the elastic band so that you can see the pretty minimal buckle. I find that any pages that have had issues in the past really settle down after a while, and my sketchbook isn't for finished pieces, so it doesn't bother me. I'll give quality a 4.5 out of 5 because I think it's fantastic. I just can't in good conscience give it a perfect score because I haven't personally used pastels or gouache in it yet. That averages to a 4.25 out of 5 for this section. This section will be a bit brief, but this is a pretty comfortable hardbound sketchbook. Personally, I'm not a fan of spiral sketchbooks, just because while it's nice to be able to flip them onto themselves and it's easier to draw on the go or in my lap, I almost always draw with my sketchbook spread out on a table with all my supplies. This sketchbook lays very flat, and not having a spiral really helps me carry ideas across the page and keep exploring without feeling like my creativity is being broken up by a barrier. I know that the spiral versus hardbound is just a preference, but for a hardbound sketchbook, this sketchbook is all around inoffensive and does the job without really any issues. Pretty boring 5 out of 5, but if it's not broke, don't fix it. For the final section, let's finally discuss the price and accessibility of the sketchbook. Royal Talens is a Dutch company that has its own supplies brand apart from the licensed brands that they also make supplies for. Most of the art supplies that have been popular and common, especially in the online art community, except for like Golden, Liquitex, and Prismacolor in North America, and Humi and Artex in China, are from Japan or Europe, but that means depending on where you live, it can be hard to find online and impossible to find in stores, and it can really affect the price that you're paying. Where I live in North America, none of the art stores even remotely close to me sell these sketchbooks, but luckily Blick's online store will ship to me with an added shipping fee, because I am not ordering a bunch of stuff to avoid biting a shipping charge. I did buy a couple of things that were on sale that I needed, which mostly made up for the shipping fee, but if I didn't, this would automatically double the price of the sketchbook. While Blick sells them for $7.20 to $15.04 USD, the size I got is currently $8.34 USD, and the shipping is about $8 USD, which at $16 I could get a 9x12 Kansas Mixed Media pad in stores, so this sketchbook ends up not being as affordable just because of how inaccessible it is to me. I have also seen these sketchbooks on Amazon, but they tend to be a bit more expensive, and you still have to pay a shipping fee on top of that. The price varies on size, location, and store, so it's important to shop around and figure out the prices you might have to pay, because if you're in Europe or near a store that carries this sketchbook for a good price, this could be a really good option, but I'll have to give it a 2 out of 5 because while $16 USD is quite a lot, buying 2 at a time brings the average down to $12, which is not quite as high as like Copic or Elo type sketchbooks that tend to be above the $20 mark, and the higher quality watercolor books that I've seen for over $40 USD. It's not affordable for me, but I'd call it pretty fair mid-range price. In conclusion, I hope this video wasn't too long, but I hope you at least came out of it with more information. Trends are quite common in the online art community space, and I really wanted to give this product the thorough review it deserved. Our final score is a 25.25 out of 30, which is about an overall 4.2 out of 5 or an 84.2%, which I think is a pretty respectable score. If you decided to keep track of your own score, I'd love to see it in the comments, and the more reviews the better, because my goal is to help, not to say that my opinion is the only opinion. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.